Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I didn't expect to see the film when I arrived today. And my reaction to the film is, I think, similar to a lot of you in this room as I looked around the room. It brought tears to your eyes. This senseless violence right there in front of us. And I want to say to those at Camp Ashraf that I'm with you. And I want to say that the real terrorists are not the innocents at Camp Ashraf, but the Iraqi soldiers who drove the Humvees and pulled the trigger. When it comes to our security in the world today, we live in an age of paradox. As Peter Ramo has written, policy designed to make us safer instead makes the world more dangerous. A war on terror not only doesn't eliminate terrorism, but creates more terrorists. Attempts to stop nuclear weapons instead encourage countries to accelerate the development of nuclear weapons. Global capitalism, intended to boost the quality of life for people, instead increases the gap between the rich and the poor. Many's peace plans produce less peace. This occurs at a time where change swirls around us in the world. Just take information technology. If we had the same advances in automobile efficiency as we've had in computer efficiency measured in data transmitted in nanoseconds in the last 30 years, we would today be able to drive from New York to Los Angeles on 4 milliliters of gas. Take biotechnology, genetic engineering. It offers the prospect of personalized medicine, longer lives. But just as computer efficiency allows terrorists to structure and manipulate networks more efficiently, so does biotech technology and genetic technology allow terrorists to create horrible weapons of bioterrorism. We live at a time where there are more people living outside the country in which they were born than ever before in history. And those of you in this room are an example of that, and America is a better place because you are here. But there are also terrorist cells dotted around the world. So we live in a world where change swirls all around us. What we attempt to do often has the opposite effect. We live in a world of change so that countries that can live and thrive in a world of change will be the winners. And the key to that is to be able to adapt. There was a British philosopher, historian named Sir Isaiah Berlin. He wrote a book called The Hedgehog and the Fox. And he said the hedgehog knows one big truth, and the fox has to constantly see the horizon, the context, and move the way to project advantage. Ronald Reagan was the perfect example of the hedgehog. He knew communism was wrong, was the end, evil would die. And he was perfect for that age. But today, we need a lot of foxes. We need people who can see the context in which the world operates. So let me tell you, however, about one institution that has thrived on change. And that's the Iranian-sponsored terrorist group, Hezbollah. Hezbollah is part of the people of southern Lebanon, the same person who might be the plumber that fixed your house or helped rebuild the house that the Israelis have bombed, is also a terrorist. They have become over the years a machine of innovation, constantly changing how they communicate, how they train, and how they attack. For example, they were one of the first to use the explosive devices, the IEDs that killed so many Americans in Iraq. That happened in southern Lebanon long before. They developed the capacity to camouflage remotely detonated bombs as if they looked like rocks right along the road. They had a smuggling network that allowed anti-tank weapons, Katyusha missiles, and even encrypted technology placed inside a PlayStation to penetrate the UN forces that were supposed to be assuring order. They had telephone networks that were secure to Israeli penetration. They test-flied homemade unarmed aerial vehicles. In 1992, the Israelis killed the founder, Abbas Musawi, the founder of Hezbollah. And Hezbollah's response was to bomb the Israeli embassy and a synagogue in Buenos Aires, thereby demonstrating to the world that they had international reach. Hezbollah has been under so much stress from the Israelis for so many years that they have developed the ability to adapt. So, one Israeli intelligence chief, for example, says he believes that the direct hits that the Israelis have made on Hezbollah has made them stronger, not weaker. And he, acting on that knowledge, when he was in charge in the early 2000 period, changed the way things were done so that they could identify who within the organization of a particular cell, a particular place, was the change agent, the one who knew how to adapt. They'd go after that person. Terrorism dropped. He went out of his position, a new chief came in. Within months, the Israelis abandoned that approach, invaded southern Lebanon, and for the second time in 25 to 30 years, they were able to do what Egypt and Syria and Jordan were not able to do for 40 years, and that is to win against the Israelis. So, in an age of paradox, traditional military approaches often backfire. And that has a very important message for the Iranian opposition. For the Iranian opposition must above all be adaptive in a world of change. For example, talk about sanctions, talk about military actions, but if the third way is to succeed, it must be as innovative, producing democracy, as Hezbollah is innovative in producing terror. And, you look at the events, the horrible events that I alluded to that we saw today at Camp Ashraf. And you think, well, in a way, it kind of flows out of the policy of the last 10 years. If you ask who is the beneficiary of U.S. policy, the main beneficiary of U.S. policy in the last 10 years, it's been Iran. So when you think about being innovative, I think you have to remember that when Iran, the state of Iran, attacks the democracy movement, what that can be, instead of a tragic moment, is a force that stirs even more creativity from the opposition about how to communicate, how to plan, how to train, and how to act. Above all, it should be a policy that's aimed at the Iranian people. But for it to work, it has to be massive, like swarming, like Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. It cannot be just the U.S. Iran. It must be the world Iran. Pressure doesn't have to be violent, although we can't rule it out. But it must never be predictable. Now, there are thousands of ways to do this. Thousands of ways. And if we had a piece of paper and I passed it around the room, and there'd be 10 ideas, 15 ideas that nobody had ever thought of, that you can come up with. What things? to reach the people of Iran, to create the context for change. I mean, very simple things. You might, TV and radio we heard in Farsi, speaking the truth to the Iranian people. Internet humor shows, coded websites, Persian culture sites that are really directed to those inside Iran. Packages, 1 million packages sent to 1 million Iranians, each with a message from someone in America. It doesn't have to be anything other than positive. Equipment that aids the opposition to smuggle more effectively into Iran. The use of our friends, and we do have some friends, in Brazil or Russia or China or India to help us communicate in ways that we might not be able to do otherwise. We live at a time where the technology is massively on the side of those who seek to displace the entity in power. Let me give you one example. I'm on the board of a company called Starbucks. And no, please, no free coffee. Starbucks, guess how many friends Starbucks has on Facebook? Starbucks has 30 million friends on Facebook. So that in 2009, when Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's spent $100 million each attacking the company, it ignited a response from the network so that Starbucks didn't lose position, it gained position. In 2008, they took out one ad on Saturday Night Live 2 days before the election, and an ad said, Tuesday we elect the President of the United States. It's your duty to vote. If you do vote, come into Starbucks. We'll give you a free cup of coffee. And they gave away 2 million free cups of coffee. The viral nature. My point here is not to equate Iranian opposition to Starbucks, but to simply say that in the world of the internet, we have a communication that no longer goes from one to many, but goes from many to many. And the key is to find the stress point of society and exploit it in multiple ways. And it comes down to 2 views of what the future is. Here's a quote from a Hezbollah terrorist. He said, "You need to know I'm ready to die. I'm just here temporarily. If I die, it doesn't matter." Israelis are not like that. They're afraid to die. That's one view of what the future is. The other view is an old Chinese saying, "One who is courageous and filled with daring do will be killed. And one who is courageous and not daring will live." From my perspective, the future belongs to those who, while able and willing to be violent at the right moment, instead want to live and want to find the thousands of ways to communicate and connect in a society like Iran that can build a context for that change. And it is that solidarity with the Iranian people that I think we demonstrate here today, that we speak to, that is the real power in the situation today in Iran. Thank you very much.